Recorded. Welcome, everyone. This is the Harwich Cultural Council meeting for Thursday, May 13th, 2021. It is 4:01 p.m. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30A, Section 20, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Harwich Cultural Council is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. Oh, I will be so happy to move on from that. But anyway, so we're calling the meeting to order. I'm going to go around the room, and if you could just say your name and present. Chris, we'll start with you.
Chris Banks, present.
Thank you. Dinah?
Dinah Lane, present.
Thank you. Peter?
Peter Hollis, present.
Thank you. Charlie?
Charles Myers, present.
Thank you. Sharon?
Sharon Moore, present.
Thank you. And Tina Games, present. And Bernadette Waystack will be absent this evening. They have senior arts night over at Monomoy High School, and she is an arts teacher, so she will be over there this evening. And we'll look forward to getting a report from her next month. So first item of business is any announcements from council members. Does anybody have anything they want to share this evening? All right, seeing none. We're going to move to the approval of the April 8th meeting minutes. If I could have a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Chris. And Charlie seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we're going to vote to approve the April 8th minutes as were presented by Dinah, starting with Chris.
Aye.
Thank you. Dinah?
Aye.
Thank you, Peter.
Aye.
Thank you, Charlie.
Aye.
Thank you, Sharon.
Aye.
And Tina Games, aye. So that is unanimous. And moving into old business, the status of the 2020 grant recipient. So this will stay on the agenda until we kind of, I guess, this meeting and next meeting until we start wrapping this up. But Chris, I know we have a report and you've got the information now, but I can share, and Chris, as she's looking through there, will give us, we did have a 2020 grant recipient. Chris can give us the name, but it's the Puppet Show that unfortunately could not pull their presentation together. So they are forfeiting their 2020 grant. So Chris, go ahead and update us on that.
So that this is just 2020, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm trying to see if there's any others that we have outstanding.
And what was the name, Chris? You have it in front of you, or I can pull it up via email. It's the Puppet Presentation.
Puppet Theater Presentations.
All right, so Puppet Theater Presentations. And I don't know.
You need the number?
Actually, not the number. Is there a, oh, it's J6. Let me just get the name of his group. I think it was Dreamtail Puppets, I think was the name of his group. So Dreamtail Puppets. And this was a puppet show that was supposed to happen at the Harwich Cape Cod Theater Company, but it just wasn't coming together. And he feels very strongly about having it in person, just wasn't willing to do it virtually. So he's going to forfeit. So just for the minutes, Dinah, it's Dreamtail Puppets. And I think that leaves us, Chris, with three more from 2020. If you look at your 2020 list.
Great. The Movimento.
Yep.
Yeah, is that one?
Yep, I believe that is one that we haven't finalized yet.
And Young Women's Soul College Group?
Yep, that one has not finalized yet either. And then there was one more, I think, or maybe two more.
Signs of Spring.
And that one, Dinah, what was the one you were working with over at Rosewood? Is it Rosewood Manor?
Hold on a second. That's Daniel Levine,
Okay.
and that is for elders. She was still on the last time I talked to her. She was just going to work out dates with the people at the facility. So I can follow up with her again. Just to see what is going on.
Okay.
And then Mindfulness Music Movement Seniors.
I think that might be hers.
That's
Yeah.
probably hers. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's hers.
I think that's hers. So I will contact her again and see what's up, because it's getting on in.
Yeah. And then Charlie, there was one you were working with, and apologies that I can't remember the name, but there was somebody you were working with. There should be one more, I believe. He was doing.
Celebrating New England Seniors.
Yes. And he was working with the Council on Aging with Emily, Charlie.
Davis Bates.
I'm trying to recall. I don't see anything here.
I think it's Bates.
I
Davis
think
Bates.
you and I were calling on one and she responded to you.
Yeah, it's Davis Bates.
Yes, and we both had emails back from Davis relative to his performing.
Exactly. And he, in fact, I'm looking at the last, I'm just kind of just double checking some of the communications. His event will be on Thursday, May 20th. It will be via Zoom at 10:30 for the Harwich Council on Aging. So as soon as that is completed, he will be sending me a Zoom link. And once that's completed, he will submit his paperwork. So that one is a definite. So Davis Bates is his.
And then as Best Buddies Shark Bites Craft Fair.
Oh yeah, she hasn't responded either. Okay. All right, so
That's
so
it.
we'll follow. Yep, okay. And Movie Mental, I'll have to go back and look at my notes with Movie Mental.
No, I know about Movie Mental. That's the one, the people who were in New Zealand. And had quite an extensive conversation with him from New Zealand many months ago. And he was going to be in touch with Nina at the Cape Cod Theater Company, but I've heard nothing more since then.
Okay, all right. So we'll follow up on these because the next meeting, we should be able to start closing this out, because our agreement with all of these folks was that it had to be completed and paperwork needed to be in and filed and processed by June 30th.
Yes. So what I have is that the Dreamtale Puppets have forfeited their award.
Yes.
I'm following up with Daniel Levine, and we have heard nothing from Movimento, Best Buddies, or Soul Collage, but Davis Bates is performing on May 20th. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Right. So there are three that we really don't know anything about, and one that I will follow up on, and one that's next week. So if they don't come through, then they all forfeit, whether they get in touch with us or not.
Exactly. And I'll just say this, just being mindful that I'll be passing the torch at the end of June. It isn't our responsibility to be chasing all of these folks down. I think we've done our due diligence and had good conversations, and we have email threads, and we can make one last effort to reach out to all of these people. But I feel like we have done our due diligence, and at some point the responsibility falls in their lap. So.
Was anyone in touch with Best Buddies or Soul Collage?
Yes, and Soul Collage, the update with Soul Collage, and I think this might have been a couple of meetings ago, they had originally forfeited. This was actually back in February, but then they found someone, and then they were supposed to get back to me to let me know when the date would be, but I've heard nothing.
Right, okay.
So, right. So that's kind of how Soul Collage came back in. They had forfeited because Lorinda had relocated, but then they asked for permission to come back in. Best Buddies, I have been in contact with her. I'll have to follow up one more time. It was my understanding that was coming through, but I haven't seen anything.
Okay.
And moving men, yeah. So anyway, we'll follow up on all of these and have a final report next month.
Mhm.
Any questions? Okay, moving into 2021 grant recipients. And Chris, I think we did have an update here. I think we had somebody who submitted.
Yeah, we had Arts and Ideas, Alzheimer's and Family Support Center, and recently Rise and Shine.
Okay, so that gives us 4, I think. 4 people from 2021 who have submitted.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, 5, okay.
Beyond the Bounds,
Yep,
Arts and Ideas, Alzheimer's, which I just said. Let's see, Arts and Ideas, Rise and Shine. Oh, Eventide.
yep.
And virtual concert, the Cape Cod Orchestra.
Right, okay. All right, so we've had 5, so for the minutes.
My pen ceased to function for a moment. Can I just get that again? Beyond the Bounds, Eventide.
And the Cape Cod Orchestra.
Cape Cod Orchestra, and those are 3, but there was another one.
There's 5.
Arts and Ideas.
Arts and Ideas, the Alzheimer's Family Support Center.
Right, okay.
And Beyond the Bounds, you got that one?
Beyond the Bounds, Eventide, Cape Cod.
And Rise and Shine.
It's Rise and Shine.
Rise and Shine.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And have those all been already paid?
The Rise and Shine I just sent in, and the Alzheimer's she hadn't paid as of yesterday. So those last 2 she's going to
But
pay.
they've all been submitted by you?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, so all 5, yeah. Chris has submitted all 5, and I know 3 of the 5 have received their checks, but the other 2 I think are in process.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep, any questions on 2021? All right, moving into the grant evaluation form. I put this on here as a follow-up, and I think I was looking at the minutes, and I believe that we all had agreed that we liked the form, but I don't think we made a final decision on whether or not we were going to use it for this year or push it off until next year. I think we were still kind of thinking about what we were going to do.
Well, I think if some people have already submitted theirs from this year, we might want to wait until next time.
Okay, makes sense.
I had that there were a few small edits that we had discussed last time and that we hadn't seen the final draft. Is that correct, Sharon? Or what is the status of that?
Probably. I think I corrected them while we were talking and I shared it with everyone. So you can always go into your Google Drive and go into your forms and it should still be in there. And I can try to look for it. Here.
Sure.
Yeah.
How to do that.
Yeah, I think they were very small edits. And as we were all talking, Sharon, because it was when Ricky was here, we were all trying that screen share. And Sharon was making the edits as we were talking. So we took a look at it. Right.
Right. And then you sent the final thing, but we didn't have any further discussion about what we were going to do with it, I guess. That's what it was.
Yes, exactly. So it sounds like Sharon is making the suggestion that I think it's a great idea that we table the evaluation for the next round, I guess, which will be the 2022 grant recipients. So we'll just open up for discussion on that.
I'm fine with that.
Same here, might as well. There's no rush.
Yeah, I would agree, given the timing. I'm wondering when is it, and how is it that we decide to distribute that? Is it with the acceptances? We would be sending that along as soon as we send any acceptances. Is that what the final was on that?
Yes, it would be part, going forward, it would be part of the acceptance packet. So when somebody gets their grant award, it would be part of that packet and a requirement to come back in order to get reimbursed.
Okay.
And we put that in the acceptance letter, I think.
Yeah, there was a mention, yes, because we were still talking about it at the time Charlie was sending the acceptance letter. So Charlie had put, and we will be following up with a grant evaluation form. So we technically could send it out. However, on the flip side of that, we were still editing, and we've already had 5 of them come in, of which we would need to chase them down and get them to do it.
Yeah, it just said the grant evaluation form will follow at a later date and is required for reimbursement. So hopefully people won't be looking for that.
So do you see it? I screen shared it.
I do, and you did a great screen share, Sharon. That's fantastic.
I don't know how to access this. I can see it, but it's very small.
I can send it to you again. I'll just send it in emails.
Thank you.
I just fill one of those out for American Express.
Right? So I think we just were saying, how would you rate the effectiveness of your project? What do you think the attendees gained as a result of your project? How do you feel your target audience responded to your project? What, if anything, would you change if you get funding for your project again?
Short and sweet.
I don't think we had anything else unless there was something. I mean, I don't remember writing down the edits, but I just did them while we were together.
Sounds fine.
Okay, so now I have to figure out how to stop screen sharing.
Oh, yay.
Oh, there.
Fantastic. You got it down. Sharon,
Yeah, but I lost you guys. When I went to go open to try to find it, like I hit I lost everybody, even though you were talking, and it's at the bottom of my screen, the go-to meeting. I was like clicking all these buttons and I couldn't see anybody, but
yeah,
I think that was it.
Well, that's great. I mean, at least we didn't lose the meeting. So when I tried to do it, we almost lost the whole meeting. Yeah, but thank you. You've got that down pat. Wonderful. All right. Any questions about the evaluation? So I think it's up to you. Do you want to take a formal motion that we will push the evaluation form as part of the 2022 grant acceptance? How does everybody feel about that?
I think that's the idea.
Yeah.
Make it a formal. I'll second.
Okay, so Dinah has moved that we will postpone the evaluation form to be used for the FY 2022 grant recipient cycle, and Peter has seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, so we will vote in favor or against the emotion, or not emotion, but motion, starting with Chris.
Aye.
Thank you. Dinah?
Aye.
Thank you, Peter.
Aye.
Thank you, Charlie.
Aye.
Thank you, Sharon.
Aye.
And Tina Games, aye. So that's unanimous. So we'll push that off to the next grant cycle. And the next item is the grant reception. And I put this on the agenda for possibilities for fall, because things are opening back up again. Now, certainly we don't know what the summer will bring, but it does appear that things are opening back up again. So I just wanted to open up a dialogue today, and perhaps, with fall coming, I don't know. How do you feel? Do you want to talk about some possibilities? Because personally, I think a in-person grant reception might be kind of nice. Sharon, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't know if you saw the CDC is recommending relaxing indoor mask with people being vaccinated. So I think a lot is going to be opened up in the fall if it keeps trending the way it's going right now.
Okay.
So I don't know, where have you held yours in the past?
For the last,
Cultural Center.
yeah,
Okay.
for the last two, I'm trying to think if it was 2 or last 3, we've done it at the Cultural Center. Before that, it was at Brooks Academy. Yeah, Yeah. But
The cultural
typically,
center has a big library room that you can be kind of separated.
yeah, it's quite spacious.
Mm.
Yeah. So I don't know how everybody feels, if you want to maybe put a tentative date, if you feel comfortable, and then we can kind of form a subcommittee to kind of work in that direction.
Yeah.
Would it be the same night as our meeting on a Thursday night? Was that what it was?
Well, you know what? There was one year, and this is something I was thinking about. I was actually going to mention this under leadership, but I can mention it now. Because I was talking to Ricky a little earlier today, and we're not required to meet every single month.
Oh.
I mean, we have to meet through the grant cycle and anytime we have some business, but we can skip a meeting, which we actually did a couple of years ago. I think I've probably done that a couple of times, where if you don't have a lot of business going on, we just kind of cancel the meeting. So we could technically look at the fall. The only issue with the fall is that we are running through the grant cycle. So we will need to meet unless you did it in September. But I think you would probably need to meet all through the fall for the grant cycle. So I don't know that it would be a situation where you could have this reception and skip a meeting. You could do it in the spring, but in the fall, I think you're going through the grant cycle.
Could we do it on another night, or is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And that's typically what we've done. Yeah.
And what did it look like? Like, what did you provide at these things? Like,
Yep. So what we have usually done in the past, we have light refreshments. Have you been, Sharon, in the community, in the cultural center? So what we've typically done is we set a start time and just invited folks to come in and do a bit of mingling. And we have light refreshments. And then we open up and welcome everybody, introduce ourselves, talk a little bit about the grant cycle. And then we introduce all the grant recipients one by one based on who's checked in, who needs to leave early, that sort of thing, and give them, timing gets a little tricky, but depending on how many people are in the room, 5, maybe 10 minutes to get up and talk about what they did with their grant. And it's an opportunity really for just the community and for us to kind of see, how did everybody spend the money? How did you use the money? Dinah?
I actually haven't attended one here, so, but I know how it would go. However, I'm wondering, is that also something that has in the past been videotaped or covered by Channel 18?
We have never done that in the past, but we certainly have talked about, I guess the last time we actually had it, which would have been 2019, we did talk about the next time, 2020, a videotaping, but then 2020 didn't happen. So we have, in answer to your question, no, it's certainly something we can do. I know that the last time we did it in 2019, Erica was there and actually did a Facebook Live. So she walked around and did a Facebook Live, not for the whole entire thing, but for parts of it.
Yeah, because I think, the people who get the most out of it are the grantees, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they enjoy it, but I think it would be great to have an audience, and yet it is hard sometimes to get people to come to things like that. And I'm thinking it would be great if we could plan on sharing it more broadly. So. Mm-hmm. If we are to do it at all. So
Exactly.
That's part of my concern, I have to say at this point, is we are so low on numbers. And when you talk about forming a subcommittee, I'm just wondering, we're a little thin at this moment with people, and we have really some big jobs to fill. And so trying to plan something like this as well seems like a big lift to me. At this moment, it does. I don't know how other people feel about it. I'd love to do it. And I was on the original committee for the one that got canceled, because I think it's a great idea in principle. But I'm just thinking we're going to have our work cut out for us with the 2 overlapping cycles, and you leaving and Charlie leaving and us not knowing if we're getting other people yet. And I'm just wondering who's going to do the work.
So I have an idea. We can think about this. I actually was thinking about this a couple of days ago. I'm happy to do this. Should you choose to do it in the fall, I'm happy to do the emceeing bit. So that takes it off of somebody new to try to figure this out. And then I know Roseanne Shapiro, last I had spoken to her, had offered if we needed her to come in and help out a little bit, because she was very helpful when she was on the council. She got all the refreshments organized and things like that. If she's still available, but she did tell me for this year, had we done it for this year, that to let her know how she could help. So that is a possibility. It's a pretty simple reception, to be honest, you know, to get the refreshments and for somebody who could stand up and MC the event. There is a little bit of technology involved for anybody that might want to come and show a video or something, but a lot of that stuff can be planned ahead of time if somebody wants to do that. Not everybody does that.
And would we coordinate with Channel 18, or would we not try to do that? We would do it on our own.
You know, I think that might be a conversation to have with Jamie, because I think she would have to come and set up in the room in order to video it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if that is something that we could be thinking about, or if we should be thinking about just finding out, because I know that's not always possible.
Yeah.
But wondering if there are other options for doing it. Like, I mean, as you described, Erica did the Facebook Live, which is just her phone, I suppose, just walking around, but that's a little bit different. I think it'd be nice to have something that's actually broadcast.
Chris.
Did we, I don't remember if we had asked, I've only attended one, for the recipients to send in, if they had something to send in ahead of time so that it could be programmed into the program, because you're trying to keep it down to a certain amount of time, but you want to give them the bang for their buck. And I think we had, didn't we have the video set up? And the problem is the way the room is at 5 o'clock at night, the light shining in from this round window that blocked out everything. So I think Erica was setting up the video and all that. So that has to be reworked, how we situate in the room. Erica, you know, usually does the setup, but if it would, you know, planned ahead, like say the orchestra kind of thing, if a portion of that can be brought in, just a little tidbit of what's going on.
Are you talking about video clips that people would bring?
Yeah, if they wanted to, because not everybody likes public speaking, but this would give them a chance to, this is what we do, blah, there you go. Yeah.
So let me give you some of the ideas of what has been done in the past. When I've led it, I've gotten up, welcomed everybody, and then introducing each recipient one by one. And Chris is right, not everybody likes to get up and speak. So there were a few examples where somebody would basically come in and set up their artwork or whatever their project was, and then they would just get up and say, I'm, you know, such and such, and this is my exhibit. You can look at it after the break or whatever. And they didn't really need to speak about it if they didn't want to. We also had a couple of videos, but it required us trying to work that out with Erica and her laptop at the Cultural Center, so that somebody just needed to push a button so that it would play up on the screen. But then, as Chris is talking about, depending on the timing of that, of the light coming in, I think there was an example of where we could hardly even see the video because there was so much light coming in the skylight. So it's a timing thing.
Yeah.
The other thought I had, Dinah, with Channel 18, and it's possible, this is just another example, because I know with Jamie, she would have to send, I guess, herself or Caleb to come into the room and set up with the video. Or, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Voter Information Committee and how they interview the various candidates that are running for office. Another thought that I had is, if we didn't go to the Cultural Center and we worked in the Channel 18 studio, that we could set up, and I know the Voter Information Committee will pick like a day, and then they book time periods right back to back. So people come in one behind the other. So they start the camera, stop the camera, start the camera, stop the camera. So where we could have interviews with all of the recipients, and we would just schedule them at certain times to come to the community center. And then somebody like Dinah or myself or anybody could just be the interviewer and to thank them for the work and tell us a little bit about what you've done. And if they have a video or something, that might be something that Jamie could help us figure out how to loop into the recording. I don't know. It's just a thought that I had. It just would require a conversation with Jamie.
Well, there are also ways that, I mean, I could help because I can borrow a camera for Channel 18. I could do the videotaping myself for the event. It wouldn't be necessary for someone to come up and set up from the station other than myself. So I could do that, except I'm also a member of the council, and then I'd be behind a camera and wouldn't necessarily be able to interact with people. So I don't know if that's ideal, but I could do that. But the other thought that you're describing makes me think of is I could do Zoom interviews with everybody, and then we could put them all together and we could maybe show them somewhere. I don't know. I mean, we wouldn't then have an in-person reception. It would be like what we talked about doing actually during the pandemic at one point.
Right.
About having a virtual reception. So
right.
That's a possibility, but it's pretty labor intensive, and just putting the whole thing together is actually the labor intensive part of it. I mean,
25 recipients.
Yeah, it's a lot of people, and they may not all want to do that, of course, but it is a lot of time, and then there's a lot of splicing together. So it'd be better to do it in person, I'd say, and just videotape it if we can. And I could probably get hold of a camera and do that myself if people think that makes sense.
Yeah. And just for clarification, for 2021, I think we had 16 recipients, but Chris, I think you're talking about 2020. We might have had 25.
2021. Up to 25.
Well, actually, 2021, we had 16. There might have been 25 applicants, but I'm pretty certain it was 16 recipients. And then 2020, I can't remember off the top of my head. We might have had 24.
Well,
I can't remember.
Applicants, yeah.
The reception for 2021.
Yeah, I would recommend 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would recommend, I mean, just my personal recommendation, 2021, because 2021, although they didn't get the benefit of having their listing in the town, what do you call it, annual report?
Yeah.
Right.
Report.
2020 was in there because that happened before the pandemic. 2020 did not even get the listing, but both groups did get the media release, so they at least had that benefit. So, you know, it's up to you, but I think I wouldn't overstretch yourselves. And I think it's a good idea to include 2020, but I think it's just too much to take on. So I would say 2021. Okay.
And
yeah.
Tina, can you say again what you said you would be willing to do for this?
Would you in the spring?
Yeah, I think I would be willing, knowing that the council will be quite small starting in the fall, unless we just get a bunch of, new members.
Hopefully.
It might be helpful. I'm happy to lead like I have done before. So it's basically being the MC. So I would come in and MC if you choose to do it in person, where I could welcome everybody and just kind of go through that. Well, at least you're kind of seeing what it's been done in the past. But anybody, if we go another route, I mean, Dinah's a master interviewer. So anybody, I think, if we did a video version or a Channel 18 version of this, it doesn't have to be me. But in person, I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to be the person if you choose to do it in person.
Okay, but not the organizing part. That's really the part that I'm talking about, is making sure we've got all our ducks in a row and somebody really takes charge of this. That's all.
Right. So yes, I can help you with that. And the way that I would do the organizing is I've got kind of an invitation that I've used for the last 3 or 4 years, and I just update, the year, and I send out an email invitation to all the recipients, inviting them to the grant reception, whenever it is and however we're doing it, and ask them to RSVP so we know who's actually coming. That way I've got a list who I know that's coming. And it's also an opportunity for somebody to say, I have to leave earlier or I'll be there late, because there's a little bit of navigating, like who might speak first or go first. So I'm happy to do all of that. And I'm also, and I can reach out to Roseanne Shapiro, because the other piece of, well, I'll also reach out to Erica, should you choose to do it in person, to at least reserve the library and any audio.
Who do we reserve the library through? How's that?
Yeah, Erica.
That's all done through Erica? Oh, okay.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we don't have to get this approved by the town.
No.
Okay.
Nope. No, we've always done it on our own. And the only time really that the town was getting involved was if we were having to do it via this mechanism. We just had to arrange, because we did ask the town if we could do a Zoom version and they said no, that we had to do GoToMeeting. That's why the town got involved this last time.
Okay, right, thank you.
Yeah. So, but an in-person one, we can just do that on our own with Erica. We would schedule the date, work with her on whatever technology we needed and how we wanted the room set up. And I can handle all of that. I mean, that's, to me, it's kind of easy. And that way you can at least see how it's done.
Yeah, in terms of the light and the time of day, because if you're doing video, what?
I was speaking and I realized about that light, it was in the spring. So maybe in the fall, the light won't be an issue.
That's why I'm bringing it up, because I'm thinking that the later we do it in the fall, the more dark it will be sooner. So for instance, if we did it in October, but what is the due date for applications this coming year? Do we know yet?
Yeah, right now, everything appears to be on schedule. So the grant applications process will open September 1 and will close mid-October, whatever that Monday is, like whatever Columbus Day or whatever they're calling that holiday now. It will close at midnight that night. So mid-October.
Yeah, so October and November are really busy times for us, actually. So
well, let me say this. If I could say this, because we won't, well, not we, because it won't be there, but the grant process won't really get to kicking until the November meeting, because at the October meeting, because it's always the second, unless you choose, and that'll be another thing you can think about, unless you choose to change the meeting schedule, it's always the second Thursday of the month.
Right.
And as long as I've been on the council, we've never changed that, but you can always change it at any time, depending on consensus of the members. But the second Thursday of every month. And so by the time those grant applications are due, you still have September and October where you could do a grant reception without getting too heavy into the next grant cycle, if that makes sense. Because you're really not going to start reviewing them until the November meeting. So you don't have to decide anything now. I mean, this is good for us to at least kickstart this conversation, and I can put it on the agenda for next month. Peter, I know you won't be here, so if you had any thoughts about it, you could just email me.
One of my questions is, this is just for the people that are involved in the grants. It's not open to the public, or?
It is open to the public. It is open to the public. Yep.
They tend to come is the thing. But it would be nice. It would be great if we could get people to come. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, we usually, in the past, it's been the grant recipients and their guests. I mean, people will say, do you mind if I bring a guest? And their guests. Yeah. We always invited like the Board of Selectmen, because they have to be mindful of quorum. They usually send one person. We always invited the media. And some of the folks just out in the community, like Peg Rose, she came every year. Some people who really just appreciated the arts would just come. And so you might have half a dozen folks coming in just because they love what we do.
Right. And really also, they're very appreciative audience for each other. The artists are. Yep.
Yeah. And then some of the artists, like having it at the cultural center, it was nice because some of the artists would just pop in to see what was going on. And
I think it'd be great to have it in person. Yeah.
Yeah. So I will put this back on the agenda for next month. I don't think we have to make any decisions right now, but I would just ask you to think about it over the next 30 days. And I'm happy if you choose to do it in person, I'm happy to help you. I mean, I'm even happy to help you, whatever you decide. I'm happy to be there, you know, because that's just a one thing for me. So I would just show up, you know, just make sure the date worked for me. And then I would just show up and help in whatever way you want me to help.
Right.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments about the grant reception? And in the meantime, I mean, we could certainly, Dinah, either you, me, whomever, can just reach out to see what possibilities we might have if we wanted to check in with Channel 18, just to see what possibilities might be there.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I can do that.
Just, all right. Yeah. Okay, so moving on. And before we move off of that, I will also say, given the circumstances, I think it would be nice to have a grant reception, but given the circumstances, I think it could be something you could pass on if you really feel it's just too much and you're overstretched. It's certainly something you could pass on. So, but we've technically always had one in normal years.
Yeah.
All right, so moving into new business, the first item is the Harwich town meeting, which was this past Saturday. We did have a warrant article that was approved by the town for $3,600. I don't know if everybody was aware. Every year we put forth an article and asking the town for an allocation, because the state gives us an allocation, the town gives us an allocation. And I did request $3,900. But in the process of the Board of Selectmen reviewing all of the various articles, they cut it down to 36, which was our previous allocation. So they approved it for 36, and then the town approved it or voted for 36. So that will hit our account, Chris, on July 1st. Okay. So it's an FY22 allocation. So as soon as July 1 rolls around, whatever the business day, the first business day right after or near that, you'll see it in the account.
Did you say July 5th?
July 1st. It's when the next fiscal year, the fiscal year for the town starts July, it's July 1 to June 30.
Holiday or something, I just didn't hear it, right?
Oh, well, sometimes July 1, it might fall on a Saturday or Sunday, you know, so whatever that first Monday is.
Okay.
The 3rd.
So it'll be the 3rd? Okay. Yeah. But July 1 is when they kick into their next fiscal year, and whatever that first Monday is when you should see it. Yeah. All right. Any questions about that? Anybody who was at the town meeting on Saturday? I know I was definitely there, and Dinah, you were there. Anybody else? Okay.
It was a lovely day.
Yeah. Nice and chilly.
Great guys.
A family showed up. I said, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, we had an osprey show. The osprey, there's a nest at the stadium lights and it was just the ospreys, you know, they're flying, and it was quite.
And they were making noises too. They were.
Yes, they were. Yeah, it was funny. All right. So the next item of business is the recruitment, the council recruitment, current and future vacancies. So we talked about this last month. I will be leaving at the end of June, and Charlie will not be renewing his appointment because your appointment ends June 30th. And then Charlie had the option to be reappointed, but Charlie, you've got some things you want to move on to, and we understand that. So that will add, because we have 7 of us now, so that gives us, so we have 2 vacancies, and with Charlie and me stepping off, that will be 4 vacancies.
Yeah.
So that leaves us with there's a minimum of 5 people. So it leaves us with 5 people. So I know we've all been reaching out and trying our best to see who we can recruit. I've made it known to Larry Valentine, the chair of the Board of Selectmen. I actually sent him an email today to let him know that once Charlie and I leave at the end of June, we are at our minimum. And the scary thing about the minimum is, I mean, if anything happened to anybody, like if you had a family emergency or a health condition or who knows, and you had to step away, that leaves the council in jeopardy.
Well, even if someone is absent for a meeting,
You can have it.
can you have it without a quorum? Because
Well, a quorum is half plus one. So if you have a minimum of 5, you would have to have 3 people present to have a meeting.
Okay, so it's half of what your present membership is. It's not half of what.
Well, actually, you know what, Dinah? No, you are absolutely correct. You are absolutely correct, and I will double check that.
I'm pretty sure.
I think you're exactly right.
Yeah, if for instance we were going to be discussing all the applications and one of us was sick or couldn't make it, that would really be a problem.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to confirm that because I think you are exactly right. I think there's always been a question on whether the quorum is the present members or the maximum members. I need to check on that. I did, though, tell Larry in my email today that once Charlie and I leave, we're going to be right at the minimum. And I am a little concerned because anybody could have something where they have to step away for a few months. That does happen on some boards and commissions. And per state rule, we have to have a minimum of 5 or we cannot operate.
Right. So that means all the applications are moot.
Exactly. Yep. And that means that technically any new money that we receive, we can't really accept it if we're not fully operational. Now, having a minimum of 5, going into July, we're fine for now. But in that group of 5, if anybody had to step away for a few months for whatever reason, it puts the council in jeopardy. It has to have a minimum of 5. Yeah.
And then what's going on with Nina's?
And that was part of my email to Larry. Yep, yeah. That was part of my email. And I asked him if he could and actually Ricky, everybody met Ricky last month. Ricky sent a letter ahead of me just asking if Larry was available for a conversation because we just thought it would be really good for the 3 of us, for Ricky and Larry and for me too, to get on a phone call because to talk, number one, about Nina's application and to make sure that Larry and the board of selectmen know that we're in jeopardy, on this whole minimum thing. So, and I did ask in the email if there was a way that we could get an understanding of why she hasn't been granted an interview. Because I don't think I haven't heard other than we can all, kind of what was passed along to me. But I think it's just good for us to know if there is an issue that maybe it needs to be put in writing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we have a candidate. We all know that there is a candidate in the queue and the candidate has been in the queue for a few months. And so it would just kind of be good to know what's going on there.
Probably 9 months at this point.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. So I know that we are reaching out. So 4 vacancies as of July 1st. If everybody could keep that in mind. I know we're all reaching out. I've been reaching out to people. Chris, I know you have. Dinah, I think we're all reaching out just to see who might be interested. So let's just continue to do that. Any questions or comments regarding vacancies and recruitment? All right, moving to the next item, which is the Cultural Council leadership. And, this, of course, is basically who's going to lead the council after June 30th. And Chris, you have agreed to stay on as the treasurer, correct? Thank you. And Dinah, you agreed to stay on as the secretary, correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So those 2 positions are solid for going into the next year. So then that leaves us with the chair position. And then with Charlie stepping away, we would also be looking for a grants coordinator. And the grants coordinator, really that role is probably maybe 3 months work. So it's really just 3 months that person would need to kind of just oversee the grant process. Dinah.
Could Charlie speak to that, to the exact time commitment of that and the workload?
Sure. Charlie?
You're muted. Mute. There you go.
Yeah, my term's up the 30th, but you know, if it's plausible, I mean, I'd be happy to work in sort of an ex officio manner to at least to get the administrative part of it moving smoothly. Now, I don't know who is an Excel expert or understands how to link files together and that type of thing, but I think I put together a spreadsheet that's pretty simplistic, that if you populate, you know, spend a few, you know, maybe an hour I took to populate the spreadsheet with descriptions of what the grantees were going to do and budgetary requirements, that type of thing, just inserting comments in the spreadsheet. It's a lot easier than going back and forth to files. Now, I don't know if that's going to be helpful or what, but anybody who's proficient with that could take that and use that maybe as a basis for something that would make the process simpler.
So it's really data entry?
Well, there's some other responsibilities which I've outlined at the bottom of the spreadsheet. And you know, Tina, I think the parliamentary issues, things like making sure there's attendance in the meetings and that type of thing. I think some of that fell during the grant making process to the grant administrator. But I think most of the issues in there were just making sure the letters go out, making sure that the denials and everything like that are supported with the information that we've gleaned in our meetings. So I've tried to put all this on one spreadsheet, but you know, fully editable so that anybody who's more proficient can find a better pathway.
This is Microsoft?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a Mac. I have no idea.
Could that be set up on a Mac just as easily?
It could be. You have to have this translational software that I think most of the Apple machines have. My wife won't let me touch hers, so I can't say for sure.
So,
but you know, it's all I think pretty much elementary Excel and Word and that type of thing.
So if I could jump in, and I think this is one of those things where whoever took this on could make it work for them, because Charlie is an Excel person. I appreciate that. I despise Excel. I never used Excel. So when I did this as part of being the chair for a number of years until Charlie so graciously stepped up and offered to do this, I just basically followed my templates. And so the grant coordinator would just be responsible for making sure, and they could partner with the chair just so that the chair is part of the loop. But you would be responsible on September 1 or the PR person of getting out a press release that we're opening up the grant application process. So September 1, and I have a media release that's already been done. All you have to do is just change the dates. And that just needs to go out to our local press and make sure that it's out there. It needs to go to, usually Caleb puts it on our webpage, or whoever, Jamie or Caleb. So it needs to go on our webpage, and it just basically gets announced. So that's September 1. And then the next step for the grant coordinator after that is mid-October. Once the grant cycle closes, then they would be responsible for making sure that every member had the panel book, and everybody remembers the panel book, that PDF document that we all got. So they're responsible for making sure everybody gets the panel book and has an opportunity to review it.
You're talking about the committee.
Say that again?
Everyone on the committee gets a copy of the panel book.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Everybody on the council. Yeah. And then, so we're on our own to make our own review of it. And then the grant coordinator, and then the chair can certainly do this, but the grant coordinator could facilitate the November section and in the December section of when you're talking about the grants. So the grant coordinator could come to the November meeting, and once the chair gets to the part in the agenda where you're talking about grants, then the grant coordinator takes over and just leads the conversation. So you would go through each grant one by one, like we did this last time, open it up for discussion, and then getting the consensus of the group. And then whoever the person is documenting, you know, what do we agree? Are we giving 600, 500, you know, so they're keeping up with all of that information. Charlie did it on an Excel spreadsheet, which is fantastic. I just basically did it in my notebook and kept up with what everybody was doing. And now, well, now having said that, there is an Excel spreadsheet that we created for once we've decided on who we're denying and awarding. Then there is a standard spreadsheet, of which I did send to Charlie, that was created before me, that one of our treasurers, Joan Sacchetti, created, and I just kind of pass that along. So you just kind of clean it up and put the new folks in there, and that kind of gets carried over. So that really is the only Excel spreadsheet that I worked with, and that just kind of calculated all the numbers. And the grant coordinator also is responsible, working with the chair and the treasurer, to make sure that we're in agreement on the number that we're giving, like $10,000 or whatever. So that the grant coordinator would go in and put that on the spreadsheet, and to make sure that as we go through, it's kind of tracking so that we're not going over the number. And then the grant coordinator just kind of keeps up with the discussion, keeps up with the final allocations. And then once that's done and approved, then the grant coordinator will send out the award. Well, first of all, the denial letters. And again, that letter's already written. You just go in there and change the date and change the names and everything that Charlie did this year, and send that out, allow it to go 2 weeks. And then once that comes back, then you send out the award letters, as Charlie did. So we've already got the template, we've already got everything. So you're kind of just sending things out and just confirming that everybody received it. And once that's all done, then it gets passed over to the treasurer. And then the treasurer just tracks everything as the submittals come in. So it's really kind of babysitting or overseeing the process, which Charlie did beautifully this year. And so it doesn't involve too much Excel, unless you just happen to like Excel. That worked for Charlie. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the next person has to use Excel, with the exception of that one spreadsheet that the treasurer also worked.
You have to forgive me. It's just my background, because my background was actually automating businesses so that you wouldn't have to do the manual part.
Yeah.
So what I did, rather than have to go back and forth to the PDF and look and see what this person did or that person did, I just put it in the spreadsheet so that you could just click on it and it would bring it up automatically. That's all.
Yeah.
But
And it's great.
I could do the grants.
I'm going to pass this on. I'm going to pass this on so that whoever likes to fill with that stuff has something to work with.
I think we just had a volunteer, Charlie.
Sharon.
Sharon has volunteered herself.
Thank you, Sharon.
I could tell Sharon was okay because she has a guitar in the background.
Yeah. If you want to come use it, go ahead. It sits there. It's perfect. No, I just, and Peter, I'll probably do it the way Tina does it because I'm old school, but there is, you click on I went into Charlie's spreadsheet in Excel, and on a Mac, it says open with, and you have the choices. So it opened up with sheets, but I'm not like that. Like, I might have my husband do it if people want to look at it that way, because he's good with those kinds of things. But I'm like super old fashioned of just like
my computer skills are a little weak.
Listen, it can be a strength or a weakness, Peter.
Yeah, right.
One finger.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Peter.
Well, I had hoped that joining council that I'd get a chance to get my feet wet and go through at least one cycle before I took on any responsibility. This has been a learning curve, let me tell you.
Peter, we all went through our years.
I know that. Yeah.
We all seem to come on the committee at the same time as everybody left.
Yeah.
It was like,
But it's truly a team effort. Everybody pitches
Oh,
in.
I know that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I had shared with somebody recently, when I joined the council, it wasn't even a year until I got roped into being the chair. I hadn't even completed my year, but nobody else was throwing their hand up, so I did, and ended up taking on the chair position before my year was even complete.
And a fine job you've done too.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So Sharon, thank you for that. And I think you and Charlie can coordinate, and then I'm available too for any other holes to fill in or anything. So thank you. That's a relief. So that
I mean, if you just want to share, sorry, if you just want to share, like, all, at some point share all those templates with me, then I'll be good to go.
I've actually got a memory stick with everything that I think the administrator needs on it, and I'd be happy to give that to you.
Thanks. Okay.
Yep.
Well, that
So
sounds.
that leaves us with the chair position, everybody, which is, so I'm going to just say this. I think it would be ideal, certainly, to have a chair ready to go July 1st, but I think worst case scenario, you could probably push it out to September. But you definitely need a chair. There has to be a chair or a co-chair. We don't have to decide that right now, but that's the one missing piece. And, I've got some thoughts in my head about possibilities and things like that. And I could talk to Ricky about different scenarios. Should we not have somebody that raises their hand for chair, what happens? But we can, I'll reach out to Ricky. It's quite possible that you could maybe not run with a chair, but somebody would have to be the point person with the state as well as with the town. So we'd have to have a point person. And you could certainly take turns running meetings. I've seen that happen where people just rotate. You just have to make sure that everybody's kind of following a similar process so you don't confuse people from meeting to meeting. So there are ways you could do this, but you definitely have to have a point person.
You kind of give a synopsis of the job that you're doing now, minus the coordinating and secretary and treasurer job, because you were doing all of that before.
That's right. I know it's hard to even think what I was doing before all of that.
Oh.
So the chairperson, there is a timeline. So the chairperson is responsible for the timeline. And the timeline meaning, so the chair's at the top, and the chair wants to make sure of scheduling the meetings. So you want to make sure that you're scheduling all of these meetings. Like this year, I had to I had to coordinate all my meetings with Erica when we were in person. I had to get those scheduled out a year in advance. With video, it had to be scheduled through the town clerk's office. I don't know what will happen in September. We'll wait and see. So you're in charge of the meetings pretty much. So you've got to schedule all of your meetings. You've got to put together an agenda, which is easy enough to do. You just take the agendas that I've created and update them and add things as you need to and minus things as you need to. The templates are all there. And just basically run the meetings and to make sure the timeline is being followed. And the timeline being like September 1 is the media release going out. Is the grant coordinator on top of everything? Is the treasurer overseeing, so you're kind of the overseer of everything. And then there are certain reports with the state. You've got to have, you've got to be in touch with the state to make sure there's certain reports, certain communications, because the stuff from the state has to go to someone. So it's a keeper of the information. If the Board of Selectmen, they need to know who's the person. So you're kind of the contact. You've got the annual report with the town that will, I guess once we get back on a normal cycle, the town report is usually October or November, depending on the schedule. And that is a written report. The template is already there. You're just going in and updating everything. I have used the same annual report template for as long as I've been here, and I just go and I just update everything. And then you go to the Board of Selectmen like Diane and I did this year, and you present it verbally. You don't have to read the whole report, but you highlight it because they get a copy of the annual report that you send ahead of time. And that way they have some questions and you're kind of the point person. And then that annual report gets done. Then in January, there's another annual report that goes to the town for the report book, the annual report book. And that is an extended version of the written report that the Board of Selectmen get in the fall. It's pretty much the same report. The addition to it is the list of all the grant recipients. I've got all of these in a template. So I have all of these forms. Then the state requires a pretty easy annual report. Chris and Charlie both have kind of been on the back end of this, where we go into the portal and there's a piece that the treasurer does. There's a little bit that the grant coordinator does. And then the chair has their section to do. And then once all of those things add up, it's basically answering questions like, what is the grant allocation? How many members do you have? What are the terms? There are a few things you have to verify in the portal, and it kind of walks you through the steps. And then the grant coordinator has to go in and mark all the denials, all the grant recipients, make sure the numbers are all adding up from what we agreed to give versus what we actually gave. The treasurer has a bit on the front end where they have to go in and make sure the numbers balance. Like, what is our starting number for the year? You know, what is our ending number? There are a couple of things that the treasurer has to do. So then the chair goes in and makes sure all of those things are done. And there are a few little things that the chair would do based on membership, like making sure everybody's current or the term dates, all of those things. And then once all of that is done and the denial letters, acceptance letters, all of that has gone out, then you're pretty much down at the end of your report and you hit submit. And once submit goes, then the state gets it, reviews it, and then that's where we get our allocation from the state, like Ricky was talking about. Once all that gets hit. So that one actually is a very simple report. And then you're just kind of overseeing your meetings pretty much, and you're just running down like we've done every month, making sure everything is on here. I think when you've got a lot of helpers underneath, like we've tried to do, it's not as big a job as it has been. And you're the overseer, basically, and the point person, and you're running meetings. Mm-hmm. And you don't always have to be the one delivering the annual report of the selectmen. I mean, anybody can do that. It's usually the chair, but it can be anybody, you know. So it's kind of the overseer. Does that answer questions? Mm-hmm. And then at the grant reception, it doesn't have to be the chair. It can be anybody, but it has been the chair who's been the MC of that. So they've welcomed everyone. They've introduced all the grant recipients, giving them an opportunity to talk, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the chair.
So it's keeping track and filing reports primarily, and also being point person and leading the meetings.
Exactly. Exactly. And the thing I'll say with running the meetings, you always, as a chair, always want to have a backup just in case something comes up and the chair is not available to run a meeting. Who is the next best person who can run the meeting? I will say that in my whole entire time of being chair, I think I have missed one meeting. I've been at every meeting. And the one meeting that I had to miss, I checked in with my council and everyone was terrified. Nobody wanted to run the meeting. So we had to cancel the meeting. We canceled the meeting. So I would just say to the chair, just have a backup person in case anything comes up, who could be the person who could lead the meeting so it doesn't have to get canceled. You are also going to clarify about the quorum, because if it turns out that we can't go with 4 people, then the meeting gets canceled right now, unless we get on the stick and get some more people on this council. Right. I think it's a great council. I think it's a great mission. I think there are people who would like to do it. I don't know that everybody knows it. It's not really high profile in town. Mm-hmm. So I think it requires talking up and talking into. Yeah. And I'll say this, it's so much more high profile now than it was when I took over.
Right.
Because I think getting the cultural compact, and keep in mind that my job had a lot more than previous chairs because of so many things that were happening, like the cultural compact,
Yes.
the cultural districts. I was a lot more involved than previous chairs because of what was going on.
Right.
And
Those things also need to continue to be shepherded, right, by the chair?
Exactly. Yep. And again, it doesn't always have to be, you're exactly right, Don. It doesn't have to be the chair. Anybody, like with the cultural districts or anything that is still in that loop, anybody can step in and have a meeting with Cindy Williams over the Chamber of Commerce representing, because Chris, I know that you attended cultural district meetings, so it doesn't always have to be the chair. It can be anybody, just making sure there's a representative at various things where we would need to be represented.
Right.
Yeah. So, and the other thing, and I will ask Ricky this too, just for clarity, but it's my understanding, like I had said earlier, we don't have to meet every single month if we don't have business. I mean, you have to approve minutes, but and we actually had this, like I said, 2 years ago, if it's just approving minutes, you know, you can skip a meeting and have 2 sets of minutes at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Open meeting law requires that the minutes get posted. I think you have like a 60-day window. So they don't have to be done like the next month. I think you've got a 60-day window. And I think the rule is either, I'm trying to remember, it's either three meetings or 60 days, whichever comes first. I have to look that up again. But so I think there's a 60-day window. So if you want to skip a meeting, you can skip a meeting. Just make sure that you don't have business that's urgent.
Can you, is it possible to approve the minutes through an email rather than a meeting?
They're supposed to be approved in public. It has to be in a public session because it is an official vote. And it has to be in a public session. You can't be in an email session. Yeah.
There's no need to anyway. I mean, I can't imagine why there would be a need to. If you're not, you don't really need to.
Yeah, if anybody's following the Board of Selectmen in Harwich, they're so behind on approving their minutes. I don't know if anybody follows the meetings. I'm just shocked at how behind they are in approving their minutes. I don't know why, but they are. Yeah.
So they don't approve their minutes every meeting?
They seem to be very behind. If you go back and look at their agendas, they're very behind in their minutes. So they will get to them eventually, but they're not like the next meeting. So I think they have, there's somebody else who takes their minutes.
Yes, there is, I know. So yeah, I can't imagine functioning that way.
Yeah.
Because how can you hold a meeting if you don't know what happened at the last meeting?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, really, there's just no forward progress in that situation.
Right, right.
Which could explain some things, but anyway.
You're overlapping with the same information, trying to figure it out.
Right, yeah, exactly.
That's true, because it's hard to remember. Of course, they meet every week, so it's a little easier for them to remember, but I think in general, it's best to really keep track of what you did the last meeting before you start the next one.
Right. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the timeline, and because whoever takes over, I was thinking that I would pull like a written timeline of just what the council has to do. And then we can sit and go through the timeline, and then you can make your little notes in between the timeline. But there is just a standard timeline for a cultural council, and you could just take a look at that and then plug other little things in. But definitely it is an interesting thing about meetings, because I sometimes, as I put this agenda together, I think, I wonder if this is a meeting we can skip. You know, I mean, we've had a lot going on this year with just trying to talk about recruitment and the grants and the 20 and the 2021. But I think on other years, there have definitely been months I've put together an agenda and I'm looking to stretch it. I'm looking at what else can we talk about? You know,
So once you've scheduled a meeting, you said you schedule them a whole year ahead.
Yeah.
And once you've scheduled the meeting, you can cancel it at what point?
You can. Yep, you can. You can cancel. You really should do it no less than 48 hours. 48 hours is kind of the rule for the state for open meeting law. You have to post a meeting, and if you're going to cancel it, it's preferable to do it 48 hours. There are emergency situations, certainly, but it's preferable to let the public know. And the way that I've done this with the one meeting that I did cancel is I just reached out to Caleb and let him know that I had to cancel a meeting because he had to go on our page and writes canceled. Because that's where it gets publicly posted. That if you go to our town page, that is that's our posting site, because the state open meeting law requires that you have a posting site. So our posting site is the town webpage. So you'll see where all of our meetings are listed, and we have to post the agenda. This is a responsibility of the chair. You have to post the agenda no less than 48 hours ahead of time. It's preferable in Harwich that you can post it a week ahead of time or 72 hours ahead of time, but the more you can give the town, the better. I've always tried to post it a week ahead of time. And if I'm canceling, which I've only done it that one time, then I just reach out to Caleb because he's the one that helps me with updating, or Jamie or Caleb, because there's an email that where the agenda goes, and then there's a place where the minutes go. And so the agenda has to be on there. So as long as our dates are listed and agenda is posted, then you are in compliance with open meeting law.
And did all the dates, you schedule a whole year ahead, so do all those days get put on the website at the same time?
Yep, they do. Yep.
Okay. And if you were to change any of them, you would just change them individually?
Yep, exactly. And there was a couple, if you remember, we did it this year. We did it back in January when we had posted our usual second Thursday of the month in January. And we were told that, I guess, I don't know what happened, but there was another commission meeting and we had to change our date. Does everybody know? Remember that? So we ended up going to the first Thursday. Yes. So I had to reach out to Caleb to let Caleb know, and he put rescheduled, like he had to change the date and put rescheduled on the website so that people could see that that was a rescheduled date. Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's just those things that you're getting in the habit of every month as the chair with the agenda, because you really are overseeing the agenda, making sure you're in compliance legally, and making sure it's posted, making sure that the committee members get the agenda within everybody gets it a week ahead. So whenever I'm posting it, I'm sending it to you, and then I'm giving you a reminder. But if you go to our town website, you'll see all of our dates listed. And I try to get the dates up before the September meeting. So maybe in August, the chair can submit the dates. In fact, next month on our agenda, we're going to be talking about dates, and we can agree or disagree if we want to keep the second Tuesday of every month. And is 4 o'clock a good time, or do you want to change the time? And then once you've done that, then you also have to make sure, if we're using remote, we have to clear that with the town. If we're doing it in person, we would have to reach out to Erica to make sure those dates are available before we post them publicly. So, and I can actually take care of all that before I leave.
The summer meetings, are there meetings? I can't remember now. Do you hold meetings in the summer?
In July, yeah, July and August we take off. The only time that we've had an August meeting, actually we were doing our grant informational sessions in August. Yes. We did two of those in August, but those weren't formal meetings.
Right. And
it wasn't a requirement that everybody go, but yes. I, as the chair, took responsibility for being there and leading those grant sessions.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's not a necessity. You don't have to do that. It was just something we agreed on as a council was a good thing to do. And then I took responsibility.
It was a good thing to do.
Yep.
Okay.
So no July and August meetings. I think there was one time when I first came on the council that we met in August, and I cannot remember why we met in August, but there was a reason we met in August, but typically we do not meet in July and August.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions?
none about that, but I was wondering if you heard about the Massachusetts Cultural Council monies coming in. I just talked with Carol a couple of days ago and I hadn't.
Okay, I'll check with Ricky then. Yeah, I know everything based on what, because I was kind of copied by Megan, who's now our assistant town administrator. She did copy me on a note to let the state know that she was putting it because they wanted it like written. She had emailed the contract and they said, no, we need a hard copy. So she responded and copied me and said she would be putting it in the mail. It's the first time I've ever had to go through all of that.
So, okay, yes, I wanted to ask about what happened because last month there was some confusion about that, talking with Ricky. It needed to be clarified. So the money, that's the money you're talking about, our award, which
The state money.
And the selectmen said that they had to vote. And they did vote?
Yep, they did. A couple of meetings. Yep, a couple of meetings ago. I'd have to go back and look at my emails.
It's going to be the following Monday or something.
Right. And I'm not sure, I mean, kind of stepping back from this a little bit, I think because we have a new town administrator, I think there were just, I'm not quite sure what happened prior and what the process was prior, but with a new town administrator and a new assistant town administrator, something just got dropped.
Right, but so what is the process going forward? Should we expect there to be any confusion next time, or has it been totally clarified so we know exactly what the process is?
You know, Dinah, that is a good question, and I will be very honest. I have never, ever had to worry about it. It has just taken care of itself.
Now that we are worrying about it, I'm thinking we need to be, this isn't going to be a yearly thing.
Right. So here's what I would say, that one of two things, either the treasurer could confirm with the town or with Carol, have you received the money? And if it's not there, then the chair might want to reach out to, I guess, the chair of the selectmen, just to see maybe where we are in the process. Yep.
Well, what desk it got laid on? Because when I talked to Carol, I did mention I asked, was it in there? And she said no. And I said, well, we've had a problem this year because of, and I explained to her about the changing of the administrator and getting on the wrong desk and all that stuff. And she was like, whoa, she was,
The thing is, isn't she leaving also? I thought she was leaving.
I don't think Carol is. Now, Charlene,
what's her name? Charlene Green?
Charlene left.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not Carol. She's not planning to leave. Okay.
Nope.
Because that would be another slipped.
Yeah. And, and I think it's also one of these things when you got new leadership, I mean, people have different ways they work. So it's hard to say what happened and where it might have landed. But it's en route now, but I'll follow up and see I'll follow up with Ricky to see if he can confirm what's going on.
What the process is going to be.
And Chris, you reach out to Carol. Yeah.
But when should the treasurer check with Carol or whoever's in that position to make sure that the money's there? When would that be feasible to do?
When should the money come to our account? That's what I guess I'm asking.
Yes.
Yeah. So Chris, for you, there is a report that we get every month, and I am going to make sure that Carol now has you, because it was coming to me. It always used to go to the treasurer. And because I was the treasurer for a couple of years and the chair and everything else, it was all coming to me. Now that you're officially the treasurer, we're going to switch that now so that those two reports that Wendy sends out, and those are going to be for you to scan. And you can look for the 5,000 and the 36. And if it's not on there, then you can shoot an email over to Carol to see what's going on.
What time of year is it that I should expect it to be in there?
Oh, okay. On a normal year, it would be January, like that very first. Okay. Yep. Very early. It's always been like that first week of January is the money. It's like in July for the town, it's like that first part of July, and for the state, it's always that first week of January.
Okay, state. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So what are we getting this year? My bad.
From the state, 5,000.
Okay, good.
And from the town, 3,600. So we should, Yeah. So you should hopefully see that 5,000 pretty soon, and then the 3,600 will hit right after July 1.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the fact that we're not getting people cashing in on last year, to 21, we've got a little buffer.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. And as I had said to Chris, just in a conversation, I'll share it with everybody, keep in mind, and this is the dance that the treasurer has to do, but keep in mind that because the state is on a calendar, their money comes on the calendar year, the towns comes on the other part, the fiscal year, that you're kind of dancing in those monies, and I wouldn't panic about what monies you're dancing in until, let's just say hypothetically, September, 5 people want to submit their grant reimbursements, and you're looking and thinking, I don't know, let's say July maybe, and maybe it's hitting at a time where you might have the state money, but you don't have the town money yet. Then you just have to make a decision as the treasurer to maybe sit on those reimbursements for a week or 2 weeks until that town money comes in, or you could come and ask for permission from the council to take from the gift account. And
I have to ask permission to do that?
you probably should. It has not been done in the past, as Chris and I discovered when we were going through some of the treasury things. We did discover in the past, we did discover where money was kind of coming from the gift account in some of those crunch times, that the treasurer made a decision, and it's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that decision, but it might just be for best practices to alert the council, would be my advice.
Right.
Yeah, because the money, even in the,
know how much is in both accounts.
exactly, because the gift money is ours too. So it wasn't like the previous treasurers were doing anything wrong, because that money is for us to use, but it might just be in best practices to just, you know, ask the council or let the council know if there's a crunch time and you're having to dip into a gift account.
Yeah. So the other thing is, legally, if we don't have the money and say just by horrible circumstance we didn't have enough money in the gift account, what is our legal obligation to pay these applicants?
Okay, so when you're doing, so
is there a timeline? Like, can we hold them off? I mean, we wouldn't want to. I'm not suggesting that's something we'd want to do,
yeah,
but could we without getting in legal trouble?
yeah, for myself, I could never see how that would ever happen, because I think there's a responsibility to always know your numbers, and to always know that what you've got coming from the state and the town, and when you're in that grant process, the grant review process, to always know if there's ever a chance of that happening, it just would be a year I wouldn't recommend giving $10,000. It might be an $8,000 year. So I think I would always my best advice for that is to just be mindful always of your numbers.
Right.
However, worst case scenario, let's just say a glitch was made somewhere along the way. Then
it happened this year.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it did happen this year. However, we did have our gift account, so it wasn't like we were without money.
Right. Right. Yeah. But it can happen.
But it can happen in that cross period of state and town monies, and particularly this year with the delay. And what Dinah's talking about, everybody, is because of this pandemic 2020 year, our town meeting in Harwood didn't happen until September 28th, I think. Right. So the money didn't come into our account until October, when usually we would get it in July. Right. So there was a little bit of a crunch period where we're like, oh my gosh, what do we do? What do we do? So I think, and I can't recall, I think we might have just stalled that out a little bit. We kind of sat on a couple of reimbursements for a couple of weeks just to wait for that town money to come in, is what we ended up doing in the end. But it was
very long, but I'm just asking a technical question, a legal question.
So a technical question would be, if you have committed, to give somebody money, you're obligated. I mean, that, you know, if you've decided to grant.
In what time? I mean, you know, sometimes people hold people off for a very long time, because they can't afford to pay them. I'm just talking about in business.
Doesn't it say in one of their letters or something, they would expect to get their monies in a couple of weeks after?
I don't have it in front of me, but I think the standard practice that I've always told people is 30 days. I mean, I think 30 days is usually fair.
Well,
I just know
that's our hope. I'm thinking about the worst case scenario.
Right. I've never, knock on wood, I've never had a worst case scenario. I mean, we did have that little time this year where the numbers were like, oh my God, what is going on? And we realized because the town money that is usually in our account in July didn't get into our account in October. So that was what, 3 months?
Been approved till the town meeting.
Right. But I knew worst case scenario, I knew that we had the gift account. I knew that if the town money wasn't going to be there, it was in October. So, but I thought if it doesn't get there, then I know that we've got the gift account. Worst case scenario, we can at least pay these folks out of gift account.
Right.
Okay, question. If say we went to the gift account because it was pretty much equal to the amount the town was going to give us. So we used up our gift account. When the town gave us money, could we put it back into the gift account or do we have to put it in the grant account?
That's a good question. I think as long as the numbers, because we are all, if we take X amount of dollars from the state and X amount of dollars from the town, that money has to be used for grants. It cannot be used for anything else unless we do the 5% thing on the state. We don't have permission on the 5% thing on the town, but remember us having that conversation. So we always have to kind of just be aware of that. Yeah.
So using up the gift account, we'd have to then have our own fundraisers and start all over again from.
Yeah, I think at one point, and this is really going back to a lot of history, but when I first came onto the council, they used to have 3 separate accounts. They had the town account, the state account, and the gift account. And at some point, right when I was coming on, the treasurer at that time, I guess there was a motion to combine the state and the town account because it really was crunching numbers to play with that state account, say hypothetically 5,000, town account of 3,600, and then this. It got so tight that I think there was a motion made to combine the accounts. So now it's the main, what we call the main account, the main grant account. So the state and the town money goes there for the purpose of granting. The gift account is something different, but we do have permission to use the gift account for grants should we need it. Okay. But it's not vice versa. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
That's it.
Yeah. All right. All right. I guess anything else you want to add? Because before the next meeting, anything I should put on for next meeting? Anybody think of anything?
No. Well, the 2 things you mentioned really, which has to do with the fall reception, right?
Yeah.
Right. And the leadership issue.
Yeah.
We got the leadership issue.
Yep. Right. And I'll also keep on for the vacancy recruitment issue too. And we'll see where we are with that. Yeah. So we've got, yep.
Yep.
All right.
And hopefully you will have had a meeting with a selectman or 2 about the recruitment issue. Right?
Exactly. Yep. Okay. That's the intention. Yeah. Yeah. All righty. Anybody? Lots to take in. All right. Any other comments or questions?
Nope.
All right. Seeing none, may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I so move that we adjourn.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Chris, I think it came from Chris.
It did.
All right, so Peter's made the motion to adjourn. Chris is seconded. So we're going to go around the room. Yay or nay, or aye or nay. Chris.
Aye.
Thank you. Dinah.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Charlie.
Aye.
Sharon.
Aye.
And Tina is an aye. So we are officially adjourned at 5:35 p.m. We'll see you, with the exception of Peter,